Greetings all, and welcome to Lucas Brews. In today's video, we're going to be doing an inbox review of Revell's 1/72nd scale Horton Go 229. So I recently put a poll up with 4 different kits on my YouTube community and my Patreon page to decide which one you guys wanted me to review. And technically the Airfix Beaufighter, which I have up here, won the total vote count if you include the Patreon votes. However, the Horton 229 won the public vote, and the video was a little bit further along in the editing process. So for this week, we're going to be having a look at this kit, and then I'll do a video on the Beaufighter next week. I should point out that I actually picked this kit up from Hobbyrama not too long ago, and you can see the price I paid there, which I'll talk about at the end. There was also the Academy Horton 229 in 1/72nd scale available, and I actually had a look on ScaleMates and realised that they are the same tooling. And originally I thought when I was filming this video that it was Academy who'd done the tooling and this was Revell reboxing it. However, it is in fact a Revell tooling that Academy have actually reboxed. So pretty similar to the Academy Tiger Tank, which I've looked at previously. But anyways, that note aside, let's get into having a look at this kit. So starting out with the box, and as you can see, it is in the regular blue kind of Revell box, which I think is a little bit older. I think the more recent ones are in black. And on the front we have a very nice painted image of 2 Horton 229s. Interestingly, they appear to have shot down a single Lancaster. And I know the British did start using the Lancaster during the day for a few operations later on in the war, once they sort of had air superiority. But it does seem like a bit of an odd choice in this picture. I thought maybe a B-29 or something like that would be a little bit more appropriate in terms of the what if. But oh well, interestingly, they've gone for a Lancaster, and it's burning up, and it's absolutely decimated. And our victorious 229 pilot is flying off into the clouds, which yeah, looks pretty nice. Definitely very eye-catching. On the side here, we just have a few details about the part number and some of the paints that are required. Then we have a little bit of a detail about some of the features included in this kit. And then we have some nice pictures of one of the prototype models showing the nice details for the nose and the landing gear, plus a little bit of that cockpit, which looks pretty nice. Then on the side, we just have a repeat of the box art. You can see here the price tag. So I bought this one from a local hobby shop in Brisbane called Hobbyrama. And I paid about $30 AUD, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And then at the top, we have a little bit of history about the aircraft. And it says, by the end of World War II, the brothers Reimer and Walter Horton, I apologise for butchering my German, were 2 of the best-known designers of flying wing aircraft in Germany. They brought their experience in this field into a specialist unit known as Sonderkommando 9, which was responsible for the development of tailless all-wing aircraft. The development of the machine, known as the Horton HO9, equipped with 2 BMW 003A1 engines, began in 1942, whereas the first machines could only be made as gliders due to difficulties with the jet. The second prototype did receive a UMO 004B1 engine. In 1944, the V2 made its maiden flight, reaching speeds of over 780 kilometers an hour, and the production of Horton was transferred to the Wagen. Basically, it got transferred to the GO, which made it the GO 229 rather than the Horton HO 229, and the first machine from them would have a UMO 004C engine. So yeah, a little bit of history about the single prototype. Of course, the Horton 229 never really entered production, and I don't even know if it really did fly or at least in this iteration. Nothing on the back other than some promotional material showing some other kits available, and a little bit more Revell marketing stuff. So that's pretty much the box out of the way. We'll move on and have a look at what's inside. So opening up the box, as you can see, we have a plastic bag containing all of the sprues. We have a set of instructions, and then we also have another little sheet of warning stuff, and that's pretty much it. So I'll start by having a look at the instructions, as is usual with my inbox reviews. Here we just have some sort of safety advice and warnings. The usual, don't drink the paint, don't eat the glue, and don't give this to a 3-year-old because they will probably do those things. And then we have the instructions themselves, which are they're done in like a bit of a glossy paper, and it's in a booklet format, which I'm a big fan of. On the front, we've got a nice picture of a prototype model, and then we have the history and technical data of the Horton 229. On this page here we have our colours. I do find Revell's colour guide, which you see here, a little bit annoying and confusing because a lot of the time, as you can see, they're mixing a lot of colours and they only really show their colours, so it's a little bit limited, so you'll have to do a bit of research. Although being a bit of a what if, you can probably choose your own colours and be pretty much free to do so. Otherwise though, we have a few different symbols here and a few little helpful guides. There's a lot of different languages included, so that's why this page is so big. But then we get on to the fun stuff on the second page, I believe, or third. And as you can see, we've got a sprue map, and there's not really an awful lot of sprues, despite this being a not a small but a reasonably sized aircraft. We've sort of got one sprue here containing the fuselage halves, another one with a lot more details, and then the wings. Plus we've got a fourth one here for the canopy. Assembly begins at step 1, obviously, with looks like part of the fuselage with a small floor piece being added and some framework being put into place for the cockpit. Looks like you have to cut off a small piece here, not too sure why or what that is. Might be a little bit more obvious when you're actually building the kit, but yeah, you're slicing off some thing here, and it's optional. Then you have a seat with some rudder pedals and a joystick, plus the main instrument panel, which also contains a decal by the looks of things. I think it's decal number 1. Then moving on, we have another bit of framework here for the forward section of the cockpit. And then we have what looks like part of the engine nacelles, or the inside of the engines there. Then you've got the exhaust section here with the last stage of fan blades, plus that little nozzle in the middle there, which you attach to the fuselage. Then we've got a bit of detail for our 30mm by the looks of things. You've actually got a proper fully molded 30mm cannon with the little piece here for the spent shells, I believe, to fall out of. And you've even got some little casings by the looks of things and a little bit of detail for the belt feeding system. So yeah, quite nice detail there for those cannons. Then you attach those cannons to what looks like the upper part of the fuselage, along with a bit more framework. Then for the front section here, you add the engines that we've done in step 4, joining them to the front section and then attaching that to the upper fuselage. Looks like we've got some more internal structuring for all of the wings, and once you've put them into place, you then attach the upper part of the fuselage with the cockpit. Unfortunately, it looks like a lot of these details with the 30mm and all of that internal structuring for the wings there are going to be hidden, because you next have to assemble the wing halves and then join them to the fuselage, I'm guessing. Yep, then you join them here. So not sure how much of that would be visible, but I'm sure you could open some panels up and do a little bit of cutting if you wanted to show the internal parts of this aircraft. Then we've got the nose wheel, I believe, with that large kind of brake there. Looks like you've got an option to not glue the wheel and it will rotate. I don't know why you'd probably bother doing that, other than maybe if you were... yeah, I don't know. You can either glue it in place or have it freely rotate if you want. We've got some extra framework for that nose wheel, quite a lot of detail and fiddly bits to put together, so hopefully they all are well engineered. Then for the main wheels, it's a lot simpler. There's just a single strut there with the wheel halves getting joined. Then there's a little bit of an internal kind of framework for the wheels, plus a fairing door for the landing gear bay. Repeating this assembly, or at least a similar one, for the other side. And once you've done that, you then attach the main wheels to the rear section here and that massive nose wheel to the front there. So it looks like there's a fair bit of detail and framework for all of the landing gear, although hopefully, as I've said, it's not too fiddly and fragile and it goes together pretty well. Then we've got a fairly large number of doors for all of the landing gear bays. So we've got a small piece for the front of the nose wheel here, plus 2 larger doors for the rear section. Then we've got 2 small flaps for the middle landing gear, plus another larger one for the outside there. Of course, you don't have to do the landing gear. As you can see in this step, it includes details on how you would assemble it with the doors closed and the landing gear retracted in flight, which is cool. And then we've got some panels here that cover the 30mm, so I suppose if you wanted a maintenance diorama, you could leave these ones off and have a little bit of detail visible from underneath. Otherwise though, you glue them into place along with this little antenna. Then we've got the main cockpit canopy here for the front there, and it's in 2 pieces, so I suppose you could have it opened. Looks like we've got another little antenna here, plus a muzzle brake for the 30mm, which sticks out. And looks like a pitot tube as well for the wing just there. On the other side here we have a marking guide, and there's two different schemes. You either have one from Jagdgeschwader 400, I believe that's red 13, or you have another one from the same squadron with blue 4. Obviously these are both fictional schemes, but as you can see with the paint guide, they include the RLM colours where appropriate. I don't really use Revell colours, not because they're bad. I've actually tried a couple and they're really quite good, the aqua colours, but they're pretty hard to get in Australia, so I'll probably end up using the AK Interactive paints for the RLM colours. Not sure which aircraft I want to go with. I believe red 13 is the one featured on the front. However, blue 4 is, yeah, well, the only real difference is the colour of the numbers and the camouflage pattern. I think blue 4's got RLM 81 and 82, which is more of that green and brown, whereas this one's more like the regular daytime fighters. Of course, though, you can do pretty much whatever you want, because the Horton 229 never really saw action, so yeah, it's a little bit of free range for this kit, which I'm looking forward to taking advantage of. As I mentioned earlier, all of the plastic sprues are contained in a single bag here, and I'm not a big fan of this because especially these clear parts can then get scratched and damaged more easily. I prefer it when they have their own bag, but oh well, it's still not the worst setup. At least there is a bag for them to be contained in. So I'll open this up and then we'll have a look at the first sprue that's on top here. So the first sprue that we have here is, well, there's not really any letter identifying it, although all of the parts have some quite clear numbering on them, so it should be pretty easy to find which piece is which. But this one actually contains the main center fuselage, or the wing area, I suppose, in the middle. So starting off with this piece, it's for the top, and as you can see, we've got some very nice recessed panel lines, and there's some nice riveting details. I believe the Horton 229 was mainly made out of wood, although the middle sections here, especially behind the engine exhaust there, would have been metal to withstand the heat and be a little bit stronger. In terms of accuracy, it's probably a bit hard to comment given that this is a bit of a what-if aircraft. And yeah, in general, I'm not the most meticulous modeler out there in terms of making sure aircraft are 100% accurate, putting them up to the plans and counting all the rivets. But in general, it looks like a Horton 229. It's got all of the nice shaping on it. And yeah, I really like the recessed details there with all those rivets and all the little access hatches. They all look quite nice. There is a little bit of, I think, detail mainly for lining up the cockpit parts in there, but not really anything major. And nothing really on the inside here, although it looks like all of the sink marks are in some nice and invisible spots there, so that's good. Underside here is pretty nice as well. Interestingly, there's some recessed rivets, but also some raised ones, so they're going for a little bit of a mixed construction here. Personally, I prefer recessed rivets, although in some aircraft it is appropriate to have them raised. There's also a little section here of the main landing gear with some very nice wiring details on the inside and some more nice rivets. Lots of little access hatches, which all look quite good as well, and yeah, the surface detail looks pretty cleanly molded, and there don't appear to be any imperfections. There's a few little tiny bits of flash here and there, but nothing in a major spot, and it looks like there's plenty of guidance holes to help line up the various parts, so hopefully it's a pretty accurate kit there by the looks of things. We've got some smaller details here. As you can see, the 30mm cannons there, which look, you know, they may be a little bit basic for some people, but I reckon that's pretty decent, so you can probably get away with opening it up and showing those ones if you wanted to. Here you have your ammunition with the 30mm shells in there, which all look quite nice. Here we've got the muzzle brakes, and yeah, they're not as detailed as some kits might be, but you could probably replace them with 3D printed ones or do a little bit of drilling if you wanted to add the holes into them, but otherwise they've got the rough shape right and they're reasonably cleanly molded. Got a few antennas here as well. Looks like there's a little bit of a flash or imperfection on this one here. Otherwise though, they all look pretty good. Little piece here, I think that's part of the 30 mils, but I'm not too sure. Here we've got the fan blades for the engine and some other little engine pieces here as well. All of them look pretty accurate and nice and cleanly molded, so that's pretty good. Next sprue we have here contains the left and right upper and lower wing halves, so there's only really 4 pieces on this sprue, so nothing too much. As you can see, they're all pretty similar. There's recessed panel lines and recessed controls all of there. Not an awful lot of detail really on these parts, and I believe this is the, well, most of these would have been made out of wood, at least this center section definitely, so that's probably why there's not too much riveting or any details really on these pieces. In general, they look pretty good, nice and cleanly molded, and the recessed details that are there look pretty good. Interestingly, on the inside of this wing here, we have a copyright from Revell. So I'll have to do a little bit of research in my conclusion about who actually made this tooling first, because I was actually under the impression it was Academy that did it. The last sprue we have here, other than the clear ones, contains all of the other smaller accessories. So we've got the main set of landing gear here, and as you can see, they've gone for a mixture of recessed and raised details. All of the wheels look pretty good and nicely molded. There's a few bits of flashing here and there and some imperfections, but nothing really major or noticeable. Then we've got the landing gear bay doors, and yeah, they look pretty good on the outside here. On the inside, looks like there's some nice raised panel lines and details for the interior and all that ribbing, so that looks pretty good. Lots of little bits of framework, and I'm pleased to say they all look pretty cleanly molded. They are very thin though in some spots, so hopefully it's not too brittle and the plastic doesn't break. But as long as you're careful and slow with cutting these parts out, you should be able to remove them hopefully without damaging them. So yeah, lots of fine parts that are nicely done there. We've got the nose section here as a single piece. Unfortunately, there's a little bit of flashing in the corner here where the canopy goes, which will have to be removed, but nothing too tricky to do. A few more little panels. We've got our main instrument panel here, and as you can see, there's no surface detail on it, so all of the detail is going to come from the decals. Here we have the main assembly for the nose wheel, and as you can see, there's quite nice details on the strut itself. A few little ejector pin marks that are going to have to get cut off and cleaned up, so hopefully you don't break it when you're doing that. And the nose wheel itself has some nice recessed hub details, and then there's some raised panel lines, I suppose, or trim on the tyre pattern there, which all look pretty good and accurate. Even more bits of wiring and stuff, or framework. This looks like the main part of the spar work there, which looks quite nicely done. Strut here for the main landing gear, all looks pretty good. Looks like we've got our rudder pedals here, a joystick, which is reasonably basic, but still not too bad. And then we've got the cockpit floor just here, and yeah, that's pretty much it for this sprue. So yeah, lots of very fine bits of framework that are hopefully not going to break when you cut them off, but everything looks reasonably cleanly molded, and there's only a few little bits of flashing and a few ejector pin marks to remove, so yeah, pretty good. So the last sprue we have here is the clear one, and yeah, as you can see, there's a lot of curvature and some rather complex shapes to it, and the plastic is rather thick. So yeah, as you can see, very nasty distortions, and you can't really see an awful lot through the canopy sections, either the front one or the main section, which is a bit of a shame, but I suppose it is kind of to be expected with a shape like that. It reminds me a bit of the Blackbird, actually, that kind of, the way it sort of curves in the middle and then droops to the sides there. So yeah, there is some nice framework though. Looks like some very vague kind of recessed lines. Otherwise though, yeah, clear parts, not the best part in this kit, but they look reasonably usable at least. And here we have our decals. Generally, I find Revell decals to be pretty good. They do silver a little bit more than Cartograph ones, especially I reckon these ones would because of how large the transparent areas are on these decals. But the quality on them looks pretty good. As you can see, that instrument panel has some really nice details on it, and all of those little warnings in German are readable, which is great, especially if you know German. You could definitely read those quite easy, I reckon. Some nice markings here with the different made-up squadrons, I suppose, and yeah, we've got Red 13 or Blue 4, plus the generic kind of Balkenkreuzes from later on in the war. Pretty happy with how these decals look. Definitely making sure to use some gloss varnish when I do build this kit, because like I said, I reckon especially this walkway marking, because of all that transparent section there, will silver quite badly. But the gloss varnish will definitely help combat that, and yeah, in general, Revell decals seem to be pretty hardy and, as you can see, quite nicely detailed. So, there you have it. A rather fiddly but still quite decent looking kit of this unusual aircraft. And I'm looking forward to building this one in the not too distant future. The price I paid was $30 AUD, roundabout, from Hobbyrama, which pretty decent price, I reckon, for a reasonably large aircraft. Maybe a little bit on the high side, but it wasn't as bad as the Academy kit, which was actually around about $40. And the only real difference is the decals. Otherwise, though, they're the exact same tooling, so it made more sense for me to grab this one since it was a little bit cheaper, and I wasn't after a particular scheme, seeing as the Horton 229 never had a combat scheme applied to it. I believe it was just in a prototype stage, but it may be that in a few places the Academy one is a bit cheaper, so either way, decent looking kit. If you're interested in this kind of 1946 what if World War II German stuff, then looks like it's a pretty good one. And on that note, thank you very much for having a watch of this video. I do hope you enjoyed it and got something out of it. If you did, please be sure to leave a like and of course subscribe to the channel because it really helps out. And consider joining my Patreon page, which I will be adding discounts for my cult store on for the higher tier members. And you can also obviously get more voting power. And a big thank you, of course, to my patrons for helping me fund buying these kits and the products that I use. Every little bit helps. The Beaufighter video, as I mentioned, will be coming out probably next week. And I have quite a few build videos that are nearing the end of the editing stage. Plus, I've been recording some scripts for some stop motions for some little War Thunder sketches, so I should be producing those towards the middle or the start of next month, I reckon. So, thanks again for watching, and until the next video, as always, take care and model on.